Hi everyone, Vinyl Monkey here, welcome aboard for this look at the letter G as we tour an alphabetical tour through this vinyl collection behind me. Thanks to those who've been with me from the start. Your levels of perseverance or boredom, whichever it may be, know no bounds, but welcome aboard everybody. And just to reassure anybody who's been worried that I'm always got the same shirt on and maybe only own one shirt, I do have a wardrobe full of black shirts up there, and even a black coat and a black jumper as well, and a couple of pairs of black jeans, but it's not an homage to Johnny Cash, although that would be well worth doing in itself. It's more about me trying to eliminate choice from my life in as many areas as possible, and that's partly because I see choice as one of the sort of key components of the great capitalist delusion, but it's also because actually it saves time. So I no longer have to think about what I'm going to wear. I don't have to get changed if I'm going from one thing to another, a funeral in the morning and a job interview in the afternoon or whatever. I just wear the same old thing. And I've been doing this for about 25 years, and I actually calculated that over those 25 years, even if that only saved me 10 minutes a day, that would have saved me about 1,500 hours or 63 full days in which I could do something else. And I suppose it's what else you do is the key with it. You know, if you're like me, you see the meaning of life, or the purpose of life is to try and distract yourself as positively and harmlessly as possible on your way towards the grave. Then you might see getting changed and thinking about what to wear as a distraction, but I'd like to think I would use that time a bit more culturally and positively, and listen to some more albums, make some more YouTube videos, God forbid. But anyway, I'll stop rambling on and let's get on with the letter G. And the first album I want to talk about is from 1963. It's a jazz album. I'm going to persevere with these jazz albums, and hopefully people might get into it. I really love the jazz, particularly if you're in the right mood and you've maybe got a glass of whiskey or you're chilling out. But this is Dexter Gordon, Our Man in Paris, from 1963. Dexter Gordon's a tenor sax player, and he's leading a quartet here with Bud Powell on piano, Pierre Michelot on bass, Kenny Clarke on drums. And it's called Our Man in Paris because the sessions were in Paris, because the three Americans in this, and three black Americans, were all living in Paris at that time, and as were many jazz musicians migrating across to Europe, partly in response, I think, to the racism, segregation and attitudes faced in their home country, and partly because Europe was particularly responsive to modern jazz, hard bop jazz. But this is a lovely album, 5 jazz standards on it. I love the last one, A Night in Tunisia, the last track on the album. But a great all-round sound, beautiful tenor sax playing by Dexter Gordon, Our Man in Paris from 1963. Next album is the Groundhogs, Thank Christ for the Bomb, from 1970. You can see this one's a bit the worse for wear with tape on the record cover. This is one of the few rock records that survived my punk rock pogrom of 1976, which I described in the first session when I smashed most of my albums when I thought punk was the only way forward. But I obviously at that time decided that the Groundhogs and Tony T.S. McPhee and Pete Cruikshanks and Ken Pustelnik were okay, and they didn't get the treatment, and I'm really glad they didn't, because this and the other 4 Groundhogs albums I've got, I still love them today. I think they're absolutely fantastic. This perhaps is my favourite, although all the others really stand up as well. But I think the Groundhogs sort of, I mean, they started off about 6 or 7 years before this as a backing band for John Lee Hooker on a British tour. But they've really took the blues in their own direction. This is a sort of semi-concept album, perhaps a little bit even proggy in certain ways, but it's definitely the blues, but it's really a distinctive Groundhog sound. There are 9 tracks on here, there's not a duffer amongst them. I love Strange Town, Soldier, Thank Christ for the Bomb, and Garden particularly. My Garden is all overgrown, things about, but brilliant stuff. That's the Groundhogs, 1970, Thank Christ for the Bomb. The third album is just one of those albums that stands up itself as a singular piece of art. I think there are some albums where you say, well, they're a great representation of somebody's talent or performance, or they're a great collection of songs. And then there are some, a few, a handful, maybe 10 or a dozen in this collection behind me, that I think just hang together as one singular work of art. And this is one of those, in my opinion. This is Marvin Gaye, Let's Get It On. And I always see this alongside the other album, What's Going On, that came out around a similar time. This is 1973. And both of those albums are just absolutely beautiful. I just get lost in them as soon as you put them on. I don't seem to notice the moving from one track to another, because it just creates a feeling and a vibe that it's all encompassing. The other album, What's Going On, was about social, environmental, global sorts of issues. This one is quite simply about sex, and Marvin Gaye in the middle writes, if you read it on its own, it's a little bit cringeworthy, but a little diatribe describing his philosophy on sex, which informs this album. But the album is beautiful, the sound is orchestral, the vocals are absolutely stunning. It clearly didn't help, I don't think, the content of this album in terms of his relationship with his father, who was another father who was a Christian minister. We've had a bit of a run of these, I think, in some of the people. Father John Misty last week, Alice Cooper earlier on, and quite a few problematic father-son sort of relationships emerging as a bit of a theme here, and they certainly don't get any more problematic than this one, because as you're probably aware, Marvin Gaye's father sadly shot his son Marvin a good while after this album, in his own kitchen, shot him dead during a row where I think Marvin Gaye was allegedly sort of sticking up for his mother. So very, very sad, but beautiful album. Marvin Gaye, Let's Get It On, 1973. The next album is by an American band, Green on Red, that formed in Arizona, come out of the punk scene in the late 70s. This one's from 1991, Scapegoats, and the band is led and the songs are written by Dan Stewart and Chuck Prophet. And Chuck Prophet is one of my all-time favourite American artists. I've been to see him several times performing with his own band, and you can pretty much guarantee any record involving Chuck Prophet there are going to be quality songs and performances. He's a brilliant guitarist and a great songwriter, and this album is evidence of that. They were being variously described as sort of country punk, psychedelia, new country, alternative country, all sorts of things, but I think it's just great, pretty straightforward, country tinged American pop rock. And I think if you like a band like R.E.M., say, for example, then I think you'll like Green on Red. So this is Scapegoats from 1991 from Green on Red. And then lastly, you may not be familiar at all with this band, but this is an album called Gondoliers by the Rodney Graham Band from 2017. And Rodney Graham is a ridiculously talented, uber talented artist across many facets of art. He's a painter, sculptor, he works in photography and video and collage, and he has a band. This is very much, I would say it's a side project. I think he's only produced 2 or 3 albums that he tends to produce in association with major exhibitions. I actually picked this one up at the Baltic in Gateshead when he was doing an exhibition there, and they are very limited editions, although I think that there are some still available, and I would urge you to look him up on YouTube. I think there's some live performances, but this is absolutely perfectly crafted, perfect pop music. It doesn't get much better than this in my opinion. It's up there with the great pop albums, the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds, for example, and I couldn't give it higher praise than that. All the tracks on this album are superb. The opening track, Getting Out of Downtown, Luigi Tenco, Old Dave Clark, homage to the Dave Clark 5. All absolutely brilliant. You've got some of Rodney Graham's own artwork on the cover, so I would urge you to look him up, give it a listen. Perfect stuff. Rodney Graham, Gondoliers from 2017. Okay, thanks. So that was the letter G. We're about a third of the way through. Hope you might join me next week when, if my alphabet's correct, it's the letter H. Cheers. Thank you.